I've taken a look at Bloodlines and Rondo of Blood, so it was only a matter of time before I was going to get to this game. It being probably one of the most popular in the franchise, it's probably long overdue. And that game, of course, being Super Castlevania 4. Super Castlevania 4 was the very first 16-bit Castlevania game, and when familiar franchises made the jump from 8 to 16 bits, it was more than just a cosmetic thing. Look at Mario, look at Metroid, look at Mega Man. All those games made huge leaps of what you could do in the game, and Super Castlevania 4 was no different. Before I get into the, let's say, blood and guts of this review, I am actually doing capture from both the Japanese and the US versions of the game for the review. I actually have a physical cartridge of the Japanese version, and I have the US version on Virtual Console. The only real difference between the two is that there's a little bit of censorship in the US version, some blood splatter removed, some religious imagery taken out. Other than that, no real difference, but just thought it was worth noting. Super Castlevania 4 is a retelling of the story of the original Castlevania. In Japan, this game is called Akumajo Dracula, just like the original on the Famicom Disk System, which means once again we're in the role of Simon Belmont. For those who aren't familiar with the story behind Castlevania, the legend goes that every 100 years or so the demon castle appears through the mist and Count Dracula manages to come back from the dead, and it is up to the Belmont family to stop him. Compared to the NES games, the character movement is a lot more fluid and you have much better overall control of your character. Controls and movement feel a lot less stiff, making platforming more comfortable to do. You have more control over your jumps this time around, and adding a new dimension to the platforming is another ability. You can now swing and hang from your whip. Being able to do this doesn't just look cool, the level design the developers made around this new technique are so unique. Nothing like this had ever been seen before in side-scrolling action-adventure games. And then speaking of that whip, this was kind of a huge deal, something I'm not sure that they've done in many of the games since, and I'm not really sure why. This game gave Simon the ability to whip in multiple directions. While standing, you can whip in 5 different directions, and mid-jump, you can whip in all 8, making this version of Simon Belmont the most formidable with the whip of all of them. Now, this does bring up something which a lot of people nitpick about in this game. One of the few things, really, and that having the ability to whip in multiple directions makes the sub-weapons and hearts, the staple of Castlevania games, kind of redundant in some cases. That doesn't mean they're completely useless. The holy water is great when you have an enemy below you, and the cross is super powerful and will often hit multiple times, and the stopwatch is just so handy when Medusa heads are coming your way. Personally, I don't think that having such an advantage is a negative. It's just like being better equipped for battle. It's not like this game is a cakewalk. It might not be as challenging as some of the other linear-style Castlevania games, but it definitely has its moments. Now that we've gotten the gameplay out of the way, let's talk about the presentation. When this game came out in Japan, the Super Famicom had been out for nearly a year, but there are many of us here in the US who had virgin eyes when we saw it for the very first time. When you think about the time frame this game and the Super Nintendo both came out, I bet there are many kids out there who got both this game and their Super Nintendos for Christmas. I know when I personally first played this game, I was really impressed with the detail and the style of this game. It doesn't quite have the colors and look to it that the later 16-bit games have, but more often than not, this look is quite striking. Now, one department that the Castlevania series never seems to disappoint in is the music, and in my opinion, this game is no exception. Many of the songs in this game are absolutely epic, what you'd expect out of a Castlevania title, but others are not quite as epic. They're more ambient, and they still fit the game quite well. Favorite part of the soundtrack to me are the inclusions of The Beginning, Bloody Tears, and Vampire Killer, 3 of the main themes from the previous games, which, not unlike Simon's theme from this game, have gone on to have numerous remakes and remixes made of them. Testament to just how great some of these pieces of music are. Now, who said that video games aren't art? If you were to ask me 2 years ago which of the classic linear Castlevania games was my favorite, I would have picked this one without any second thought or hesitation. Nowadays, I am not quite so sure. I think I might be picking Rondo of Blood over this one, but that does not make this one a bad game at all, not by a long shot. It is an essential for the Super Nintendo, just like how the original Castlevania is for the NES. For a game that is 24 years old, this game has held up remarkably well, and if you want to check it out for yourself, you can go download it on the Virtual Console for the Wii and the Wii U, as well as, of course, hunting down an original cartridge. Out of these linear-style Castlevania games, which one's your favorite? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you think. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.